So I see from the participant numbers, colleagues are still joining, but we have a very rich program. It's just after 10 o'clock. I think we should make a start. Welcome all of you to this regional discussion on building a common understanding of the transformative power of digital for the Eastern Partner region. Thank you all for coming. I want especially to thank those who support this work, the European Union and the government of Poland for making this possible. And since the program is quite rich in content, I will say nothing more on the substance. I just want to make a very few quick technical announcements and pass on to the first of our speakers. The first thing is to note that we ask you all to keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. If your microphone is on and someone else is speaking, then anything that happens where you are located is audible to everyone else in the meeting. That might be phone calls, that might be office colleagues coming in, on some occasions, dogs barking, whatever. It is a distraction for all. So please keep muted when you don't have the floor. Secondly, if you wish to take the floor during the open discussion, you may do so either by typing a comment or a request to speak into the chat window, and I will try to give you the floor as soon as I am able to do so. Or you can raise your hand in Zoom fashion by opening the participants menu and selecting the raise hand option, which you find in the participants menu of Zoom. I'm afraid raising your hands in the old-fashioned physical way will not work because I can't see everybody at the same time. Last, but perhaps most important technical point, if you require interpretation, we do have simultaneous interpretation today. The Zoom menu has a little icon in the shape of a globe, which is your kind of interpretation menu. Choose the language you need. Just three things to remember. One is that we suggest when listening to interpretation that you mute the original language. The second is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I don't understand why, if the speaker is speaking the language you want, the interpretation doesn't always deliver it, and you might have to turn original back on. So if a speaker is speaking the language you wish to hear, you may need to put the interpretation back on. And the third and most important thing with respect to interpretation for the whole of the meeting, if you are taking the floor to make an intervention or raise a question or offer a comment, please turn interpretation off before you speak. If you speak in the meeting with interpretation switched on, it can frequently create technical issues, echoes and other noise problems, both for you and for other participants. So that's all I have to say on the technical side. I'm very happy now to pass the floor first to my OECD colleague, Daniel Quadbeck, the head of the East Europe and South Caucasus unit in the Eurasia division. Daniel, please.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, everyone. Very good to see so many of you. Very warm welcome from my side on behalf of the OECD. Thank you for joining us today for this first regional policy webinar on SME digitalization. I'd like to thank first the European Union in particular and Poland for the financial support for this project, which we implement under the umbrella of the EU for Business initiative. Dear Darius, good to have you with us today, and thanks for the excellent cooperation, which is not only financial but also substantive. So thanks very much. Now, today is the first in a series of technical webinars through which we want to share good practices, country experiences on how to design and implement sound policies to promote the digital transformation of SMEs. So for this first webinar today, the main objective is to build a common understanding of the concept of digital transformation. We would like to clarify questions like, what do we mean by digital transformation? What do we mean by digitalization? What is the relationship between digitalization and productivity? And most importantly, what are some important policy implications to consider to make sure that digital transformation delivers inclusive and sustainable economic growth, including for vulnerable segments of the enterprise population, such as SMEs. I'm very pleased that we have with us today a great variety of speakers. So we will hear from different perspectives. We have OECD colleagues that will help us frame the topic. We have representatives from the business community. We have practitioners from digital innovation hubs and centers who will share with us their experience of what digital transformation means in practice. What challenges do companies typically encounter? What type of government support could be considered and could be delivered to a network of facilitators that are essential to not only raise awareness, but also to advise companies on how to get started, how to use digital tools, how to use digital solutions, and how to create better customer value and become more competitive. So I'll stop here with my brief opening. Thank you all again for being with us. Let me just stress, we want this event to be as interactive as possible. So please feel free at any time to put your questions in the chat as they come to your mind, or to raise your hand in Zoom. I'm really hoping we can have a productive discussion, and yeah, look forward to the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. And now we hear from the European Union from Mr. Hoabin Ajemian, the head of sector for economic development in DG NEAR.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to meet all of you this morning. And maybe let me take this opportunity not only to thank my colleague to organize the event, but maybe to frame how the EU is supporting the Eastern Partnership in the digitalization process. I think there's different dimensions. We'll focus on one that is essential, but it's also important to see the context. In addition to the policies, and I think it's very important to work on the policies, let me recall you briefly like what we're doing jointly and the challenges we have. So one aspect of digitalization is for sure access. I mean, we all know that access is important, access to internet. And on this, just to announce and for you to keep in mind, we have an objective to mobilize and to help mobilizing 1.5 billion euro investment in the region to enhance access to internet, high-speed, affordable internet for everyone and citizens. We're jointly working on the regional roaming agreement that would substantially decrease the roaming prices. We're jointly working on spectrum agreement that should prepare for the 5G deployment. So access is important if you talk about digitalization. In addition, we need skills, and this is also something we'll talk about it. And on skills, how do we, the European Union, support you? We have an ambitious objective to support 1 million citizens in the region in the coming 5 years, leveraging the EdTech, so the new technology. I mean, these are ongoing studies with EU for Digital, and there will be a pilot, and then we move to skills in the coming 5 years. We also have a very interesting program that most of you know that put in practice the digitalization with EBRD, which is Advice to Small Business, where we've been supporting hundreds and thousands of SMEs. There's a special focus right now on digitalization. So these are practical things we're doing with some of the experts present here, but for sure we have to frame it in a policy, because this is, even if we're talking about 100,000 SMEs, it's still a small number. We're also supporting, and this is very important, I mean, you talk about digitalization of SMEs, but there's a market if we're supporting the digital transformation of government. In this part, we're working on this interoperability in countries, between countries, in particular e-governance. There's very interesting program where we're working not only on the legal side, but on the technical side, building a data digital warehouse that we have piloted, that we might move to scale in different places, where actually the digital transformation you do would better tap in. So there's the environment we're also working on. And for sure, there's the direct support to business. I mean, as you know, EFSD, I mean, just to give you numbers, we in the coming 5 years want to support 500,000 SMEs, local currency more than 1 billion, investment in equity 500 million, a very interesting support to startup ecosystem of 100 million euro. So we're here to provide access to finance, access to knowledge. But I would say all these 4 dimensions that are the digital compass of EU, but could be the digital compass of the entire region, need proper policies, because we're under a framework and a vision of government. This is why the OECD partnership that we have and the work we're doing today to shape the vision, to ensure that we develop on the 4 dimensions is crucial. And we're really happy to partner with the OECD on this joint journey to make this part of the world a more digitalized but better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bin. And now we turn to Dariusz Monjało, Councillor and Head of Political and Economic Affairs section in the permanent delegation of Poland to the OECD.
Thank you very much, Bill. I'm pleased to be with you. It's my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, this seminar is a very concrete step as a follow-up to the regional high-level kick-off event held in May this year. Digitalisation is a phenomenon commonly recognized, but do we fully understand its nature and mechanism? If I have a website, if I sell products online, contact with customers using the internet, am I really a part of a digital world? Or maybe it's only my illusion. I'm sure that the answer to these questions will be provided during this OECD seminar. OECD is an organization which provides the evidence-based, tailor-made assistance to its members to help them to face the challenges in many aspects of economic life. Poland, as a member of OECD, indeed benefited a lot from its membership in this organization and from day-to-day cooperation with the OECD Secretariat and with other members as well. This year, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of our accession to the OECD. Today, Poland is ready to share its knowledge and experience, but the OECD offers also its services to the non-members. The very good example is this webinar. As the OECD is the right unique place where the experts from the member states and those from partner countries can meet together, discuss the issues of mutual interest, such as the question of digital transformation of small and medium-sized enterprises, and also learn from each other. Ladies and gentlemen, the cooperation with region of Eastern Europe and South Caucasus plays an important role for Poland. Since many years, we have supported the implementation of OECD regional program addressed to Eurasia, which covers the countries from this sub-region. This engagement of Poland towards Eastern Europe and South Caucasus countries will not change in the coming years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dariusz. And now I turn to a former OECD colleague, still a close collaborator of ours and an outstanding expert in SME policies, even though the OECD has, alas, lost his services. Antonio Fanelli, please.
Thank you, Bill. Well, my task is to introduce the first session and of this seminar, well, of this training session. We will have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Francesco Maranesi. He's a head of unit in the Science, Technology and Innovation Directorate in the OECD. And he will talk about innovation, technology, digitalization, the relation with productivity, and the issue related to competition and skill development. It will be followed by Francesco Alfonso from the Eurasia unit. And Francesco will talk about the diffusion of digitalization in Eastern Partnership countries. And he will also present the structure of the program supporting digitalization. And finally, I will make an introductory remarks about the policy implication of digitalization. So we can start with the first speaker. After this session, we will have a following session with a number of case studies from the region. We will have speakers both from the private sector as well as from public institutions. And after that, we will have time for questions posed by the public. Well, let's start with the first presentation. Francesco, is for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Antonio. It's really a pleasure for me today. Let me just share my screen. Hope everything you can see it well. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today, as I was telling you, and to present a bit of the work of my division and my unit more in particular on and what we basically what turned out to be a larger research stream which focuses on the diffusion of digital technologies among firms and how we can foster its impact on productivity growth, aggregate productivity growth. So let me start by giving you a bit of context. So we generally know and we somehow frame the problem of innovation and productivity growth as a twin project. At once, a twin problem. At one side, there are frontier firms which are at the frontier of technological advancement and of innovation, which generally boost productivity growth by innovating, experimenting, or developing new technologies. However, these are not the only channel through which productivity grows. Indeed, their innovations and their development needs to diffuse to other firms, in particular to small and medium enterprises or to less productive firms in general, which adopt and ultimately try to catch up with the frontier. Now, this catch up, or at least trying to catch up, ultimately imposes competitive pressures to frontier firms, which at the same time are then incentivized to innovate more. This process of, we could say, this dynamic process of innovation and diffusion is ultimately what drives aggregate productivity growth for all economies. I mean, both developed, emerging, or developing economies alike. Now, however, somehow the paradox of this period of the last 20 years is that while in innovation and digitalization, we know they are transforming our economies, and we see that firms behave quite differently from what they want and produce value and value added in a different way with respect to what it was some time ago. At the same time, we see that productivity, aggregate productivity growth is slowing down. This is can be well appreciated both across all economies of the world, as you can see on the chart on the top, on the bottom left. So aggregate yearly productivity growth has slowed down at the world level, but also among advanced economies or among emerging and developing economies alike. And at the same time, somehow this pattern has been also characterized by a different behavior within the economies and within the sectors between those firms which are more productive and firms which are less productive, which we generally call leaders and laggards. So leader firms have slowed down their productivity growth indeed, but at the same time, the drop in productivity growth by laggard firms, so by less productive firms, has been even stronger. So as a result, what has happened over time, over the last 20 years as a minimum, is an increase in productivity dispersion between more productive firms and less productive firms, which has accompanied this slowdown in aggregate productivity growth. At the same time, those laggard firms, those which are not at the frontier, face indeed harder and harder to catch up and to be able to effectively compete with leader firms. This pattern ultimately can be conceptualized as a slowdown in the so-called diffusion machine. That is, as an increasing inability of technologies and digital technologies in particular to diffuse throughout the economy. This increasing productivity divergence indeed has slowed down what we call the within firm growth, that is the ability of the average firm to grow, while the increasing divide has made more productive firms even more productive over time. So why is it a problem? Well, it is a problem because this actually generates a set of additional effects. This slowdown in diffusion of the benefits of digital technologies across all firms generate a set of additional problems, such as a decline in entry rates. So new firms are entering at a slower pace with respect to 20 years ago. It has created also an increase in industry concentration, that is ultimately large firms getting larger and more productive. It also has created a boost in merger and acquisition throughout the economy, and ultimately an increase in markups, okay, driven in particular by high markup firms who have increased their market share. So we have tried to understand, and one of the key problems for us is trying to understand what drives this phenomenon. And we actually came to understand that behind the slowdown in the diffusion of technologies and innovations, there is indeed the key role of the characteristics of the digital transformation. So by digital transformation, I consider here the bundle of the use of digital technologies and the investment in those intangible assets which are complementary to these technologies. I'm going to discuss more in detail about these intangibles. What are these intangibles and why do they matter? But of course, a little bit, it has been discussed even before by the representative of the European Union, the role of skills. Now, skills are clearly an intangible asset, which are important to foster the digital technology and to their returns in particular. Now, the digital transformation has somehow a potentially two-sided effects on the diffusion of technologies. At one side, digital technologies lower entry cost, okay, is the sharing of ideas. People can always connect to the internet and access, say, a lot of knowledge through the internet, and somehow lower the barriers to market penetration. This, in principle, could boost diffusion of technological opportunities across firms. However, the intangible investments that are needed to foster the potential of the digital transformation have some peculiar features which make them somehow prone to foster what is called the winner takes all or winner takes most dynamic. They are generally non-rival, and they are highly scalable. That is, you can easily increase the scale of production by using the same amount of intangible investments, and thus ultimately this generates, for those who have the scope and are able to get to the scale quickly and before the other firms, the opportunity to take most of the returns of an industry. Economies of scale, moreover, they have network externalities, which means that the fact that you are first and start getting a network of customers generate for you a potentially important dominant position, which makes for other firms harder to enter. So ultimately, all these features plus the difficulty of investing, for instance, in intangible assets by small and medium enterprises because they are hardly collateralizable, and so it's hard to get external finance for that, just to mention one additional problem, generates a set of problems which reduce the diffusion of the potential benefits of the digital transformation across all firms. This in turn, because there is lower competitive pressure for high technological firms, more technological firms, ultimately slows down the pace of innovation, because the incentive to innovate are reduced. To show evidence of this, we have found that, for instance, intangible investments so the intangible intensity of an industry is positively correlated with the degree of dispersion between best and worst firms. So this productivity divide has been stronger in industries which were more intangible intensive. Or again, digital intensive sectors were more likely to experience a stronger slowdown in entry rates. Intangible intensive sectors were more likely to experience and actually experienced a stronger increase in industry concentration. So why it does matter? Well, first of all, because of course this is a key channel through which we can explain the slowdown in productivity growth. So on the other side, developing policies to foster the diffusion of technology and thus ultimately to counter these potential size effect of the digital transformation is key to allow to reignite productivity growth across the world. At the same time, it's also key because this productivity divergence is a strong channel through which we have experienced increased wage inequality. The dispersion of firm wage premia, okay, is largest in countries with larger productivity dispersion. So it can explain up to 15% of the increasing inequality that we have experienced in OECD countries. Moreover, it's also important because we have evidence that fostering entry and so countering the decline in entry rates is a good way of inducing a stronger and more inclusive economic growth, as new firms are more likely to hire women or disadvantaged persons. So ultimately, then the question is, how can we foster technology diffusion? It's indeed important to foster the investment in intangible investments. But what are these intangible investments? Now, here I'm just providing you a simple characterization developed by a set of researchers, Carol Corrado, Jonathan Haskell, and co-authors, We know, for instance, the role of software, databases, R&D, intellectual property products. These are, say, the standard intangible investments, which are also used and accounted for in national accounts. However, there is a large share of other intangible investments which are key to enable the digital transformation and are generally much less measured, much less well measured, and in particular sometimes overlooked. These include, in particular, the training and the skills of the worker, but also what we call in general the organizational capital. That is the ability of a firm to organize and manage the complexity of the new business models that are fostered by digital technologies. If you don't somehow change the way the firm behaves when you adopt a digital technology, you ultimately cannot reap the true benefits of that technology itself. To show you now a bit of how we can see that this matters, I'm going to provide you a couple of evidence of a study that we are doing on Italian MSMEs to study why and how to foster the digital transformation and reduce what we call the Italian digital gap. So we have been able to collect a large set of information for the census of Italian firms, over 4 million firms, for which we observe digital technology adoption and intangible investments, as well as the quality of the workforce and the managerial capabilities of each firm. So we've looked first at the standard intangible, what everybody think of when you think about intangibles, which is R&D. Indeed, R&D is able to increase the absorptive capacity of firms, that is, of new technologies. That is, whenever a firm invests in R&D, ultimately this allows them to better use and adopt the digital technologies. Moreover, the joint use of advanced technologies and R&D clearly boosts their ability to apply, basically to develop new patents and new products, okay? So these two effects are very important. However, these effects mostly accrue to large firms or to medium-sized firms. As you can see here, advanced technology adoption is correlated with R&D mostly for larger and medium-sized firms. The gains for micro and small firms are generally limited. Why? Because ultimately, as we all know, R&D is something which has itself a lot of scale economies and ultimately can be performed somehow more effectively whenever the firm has a higher scale. So what are the other intangibles which allow micro and small firms to catch up, okay, rather than R&D, which is still important, but somehow is skewed to the right of the size distribution of firms? So first of all, training. So here we are basically plotting a simple correlation between, well, but this correlation is robust to a set of controls between investments in total training and labor productivity. So the more you invest in total training, the more likely that your country sector increases productivity. Sorry, okay. And human capital is really key to boost not only the adoption. Here to the left, you can see that distinguishing with various technologies, digital technologies, enabling technologies, management software, management softwares like ERP, CRS, and the like, cloud computing, and advanced technologies, you can clearly see that for whenever a firm is high skilled, that is, it has a sufficiently high share of skilled workforce, its adoption of new technologies is increased. In particular, this effect is significant for advanced digital technologies like Internet of Things, big data, and the like, and cloud computing and advanced management softwares. It also, these skills also allow you to boost the returns of these technologies in terms of productivity. So here the dependent, so what we're measuring is the effect of these technologies on labor productivity. And the orange line is the effect of the skilled workforce. So how high is the share of your skilled workforce? But the blue, the key point here is the blue bar. That blue bar shows you the interaction between technology and high skills. So it's ultimately the complementarity between having high skilled workers and adopting digital technologies. You can clearly see that there is a positive complementarity. Okay, let me just show you that this is not just something which is not policy relevant. This is clearly extremely policy relevant. And there are several levels through which we can boost skills in the workforce. One of them is through increasing the supply of STEM education. Here you can see on the left in particular that the availability of STEM courses, okay, which we measure in Italy thanks to the mapping of all STEM courses throughout the peninsula, fosters the adoption of digital technologies. So here by 1% or up to 1.2 percentage points, particularly of most advanced digital technologies. But this effect is mostly accrues to micro and small firms. Why that? Basically because in the end, for medium and large firms, their labor market is not local, but generally they are able to pick up workers throughout the country. But it's micro and small firms which benefit the most from the local availability of skilled workers. Finally, we do have also other important results on managerial skills. And managerial skills, so the ability of managers to manage the complexity of the firm, are able to boost the returns of technologies, but also boost the complementarity between advanced technologies and high-skill labor. It's really like having a director of an orchestra. If this director of an orchestra is good, it is able to to manage the complexity of different important musicians and skilled musicians. So why is this important? So ultimately the policy, just to conclude, the policy that we discuss in an analysis are generally aimed at boosting the diffusion. But at the same time, we need somehow a policy mix which also foster innovation. So we really need a policy mix that at one side foster innovation, mobility, and experimentation among the leader firms, something I did not discuss today much. And on the other side, it boosts technology diffusion through increases in firm awareness and absorptive capacity, through skills, through finance, through support to R&D, but also through more generally boosting competitive pressures and inducing firms somehow to have a stronger incentive to adopt the digital technologies. Most importantly, these policies will also be able to bring what we call double dividends, because as we briefly discussed, boosting technology diffusion among MSMEs ultimately allows also to reduce wage inequality and foster the inclusion of disadvantaged workers. And ultimately, we argue that the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated somehow those structural processes of divide between firms, and thus it is somehow more important to tackle these issues today in the context of the post-pandemic world. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. I think I want to, I'm watching the clock. I think we'll have a little time for questions in a few minutes, but I would like to pass from one Francesco to another first and hand over the floor to my OECD Eurasia colleague, Francesco Alfonso, who will talk to us a bit about the EU for Business Phase 2 project framework and the current state and availability and uptake of digital technologies in the region. Francesco.
Thank you, Bill, and indeed thank you, Francesco, for sharing with us all this data and research on the dynamics of digitalization, the relationship with productivity growth, and also the implications for divergence and inequality. So I think this is an excellent basis and already a very strong justification of why it is important that we work on an inclusive digital transformation. So in the few minutes I have, I'll do my best to bring all this content closer to the specificities of the Eastern Partnership and our EU for Business project. And in particular, I will introduce some additional elements of context to our discussion. I will share with you some initial evidence on the state of digital diffusion in the 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership. And I will also propose our approach to support governments to build a conducive policy environment for the digital transformation of SMEs, all of this in the context of this new EU for Business project. So first, okay, why working on digitalization? Francesco already said most of it. Let me just remind that on the one hand, we can see digitalization as a driver of structural transformation. So this means, for instance, that new markets are being created, that the mix of skills demanded is shifting. But at the same time, one important aspect that we want to stress is that digitalization does not only refer to the purely digital economy, but also, and I would say equally importantly, at least to the incremental changes that occur in more traditional sectors and businesses. We also know well how COVID accelerated digitalization and how governments should be aware of digital divides, so I will not insist on this. And one additional point I would like to make is that when we look at digitalization, technology is only half of the story. That the impact of digital on productivity is highly heterogeneous, as we saw from Francesco's slide, and is only often visible only with a lag. And so one important explanation for this is that hardware and software, I must say, is not enough, and that firm performance only improves if this process of technology adoption comes together with an openness to embrace a truly digital culture. So we started to look at the available data to understand a bit more what is the current state of digital adoption in the Eastern Partner region. And we tried to put it together. So in this chart, for each technology that you see on the horizontal axis, in blue, you see the median value for OECD members for small, medium, and large firms. And in white, you see the available data points for Eastern Partner countries. And we can already start observing some patterns in technology adoption. First, that smaller firms consistently lag in adoption compared to large firms. Second, that the relative gaps become more evident as technologies become more advanced, like in the case of big data or AI. And specifically then for the EaP region, we see that, okay, unfortunately data is still quite scarcely available, but where it exists, the SME gap is confirmed and the region as a whole lags compared to OECD members for all size classes. Now, why are SME gaps important? There are a few points to be made here. First, we saw how digitalization is a driver of productivity growth, which in turn brings wage growth. And because of this, if there are gaps in adoption, this contributes to increasing inequalities among firms and workers. Second, okay, one could think that integrating proven technologies is faster and safer than testing new ones. And as a consequence, SMEs could grow fast by just catching up on the adoption gap. However, we know that, again, Francesco already touched upon this, there are strong complementarities in technology diffusion. And this complementarity increases with firm size. So in practice, larger firms are better able to step up to new technology environment and digital practices, and thus reap the benefits of digitalization as early adopters. So what can we do and what can governments and SME agencies do to accompany SMEs in their digital transformation and to an extent try to mitigate digital divides? One important aspect here is to recognize that technology is only one part of the picture, as we say, and that a true digital transformation of SMEs requires digital culture to drive technology adoption. So this means that governments and SME agencies should start promoting awareness, for instance, of digital solutions, and businesses should adapt their business processes to the increased availability of data, the depth of customers inside that is now possible, and the speed even of market interaction. But it also requires digital acumen to spot new business models and build the necessary safeguards and protection for data privacy and security. So with this EU for Business project, we want to look at, on one hand, the overall framework conditions for the digital economy in the Eastern Partner region, which includes aspects of connectivity, market openness, and skills. But we will also have a strong focus on the specific policy measures and instruments that SME agencies can put in place to support SME digitalization. And here I'm thinking about financial support and technical support as well, but also trainings and guidance on the skills required to support technological evolution. So to conclude, we have devised a quite rich plan of activities for this year. We always work on two levels. At the regional level, we are carrying out a series of policy seminars. This is the first one. And so after today, two more will follow in September and October on the topics of digital skills and specifically on what SME agencies can do. In parallel, we're also conducting a regional study on the drivers and uptake of digital technologies and a stock taking of the current digitalization policies in the region through a dedicated survey. And we are also updating the methodology for the new round of SBA assessment to reflect the new content. At the country level, this year we will have peer reviews of Azerbaijan and Georgia that will both have a strong focus on digitalization of SMEs. So I think I can stop here and leave it and over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Francesco. And now we come back to Antonio Fanelli, who I'd like to tell us just a little bit. We've already begun talking about the specific challenges of digitalization that face small and medium enterprises. SMEs are not like larger firms. And I'd like to ask Antonio to guide us through some of these challenges, particularly the human aspects of change and changes in digital culture.
Thank you, Bill. Well, I will start with the first observation that digitalization is deeply changing the way we produce, consume, communicate, and socialize. Is actually what we are experiencing is an epochal transformation. It's somehow comparable to that following the development and diffusion on the general electric power. Also, in this case, has been a general technology that had far-reaching consequences. Only in the case of digitalization, the speed of transformation is faster. There are some parts of the world that still have unreliable electrical connection, while most of the populated part of the world now are covered by network that allow access to internet. The challenges for policy, please, then first slide. The challenges for public policy are multiple and complex. In the previous presentation, we already spoke about the effects that digitalization has on productivity, the role of skills, the new divide that are emerging among firms, among the population, and among the workforce. The task of policy is even more complex because the process of digitalization has been driven by the private sector, with little interference from the state, excluding the basic research at the beginning of the process. So the policy response has been always one step behind the technological and market development. You can see with the difficulties the government had, for example, in coming up with a tax regime able to cover the largest firm operating in the digital domains, as well as the difficulties to regulate the large platforms. The next slide. So digital transformation is also questioning some of the long-standing principles of SME policy. For example, In the case of SME policy, one of the principal aim of the policy is being to correct market failures, either in terms of access to the market, product market, or also in terms of access to finance. But when we talk about digital markets, then we see that the conditions of access are regulated by the platform operators, where the government has little possibility to intervene. Also because these global e-commerce platform or social platform are regulated by, operated by large companies that are escaping government supervision. They're operating from far away and operate globally. The other issue is the ability to absorb and manage effectively the new technology and application. And all connected with the availability of staff, as already presented in the first presentation. And the ability to adopt a digital culture and the ability to take management decision based on the large data made available from internet. All of these are crucial elements that usually are not very much considered in SME policy, where we tend to provide services specifically to certain type of enterprises. And we provide general training availability, but not specific services. The other critical point is the presence and the support of an ecosystem that assists the SMEs in their digital transformation journey. Digitalization is disrupting business practices and also affecting negatively the existence of many traditional companies, often family-based, putting pressure on those enterprises. So there is also pressure on policymakers to preserve and protect the life of those enterprises and the workers associated with those enterprises. So policymakers are in this difficult position of having to support transformation, at the same time protecting those, or at least assisting those that are negatively affected from the transformation. When we look specifically at the degree of digitalization among SMEs, we can see that when we look at the entire SME population, there is always a small minority of firms that are born digital, and they are navigating along the technological frontier, as has been mentioned in the first presentation by Francesco Menalesi. Below this, there is the core mass of enterprises that are at different stages of digital transformation. That most of the company have done is to adopt and introduce a standard administrative application. But most of them, they stop there. They are not exploring the full potential of digitalization. They are not using digitalization to review their business model and reorganize their operation. They only see digitalization as a way to simplify and speed up their bookkeeping and human resources management. And then we have a layer laggard, most of them operating in traditional service sectors, which are rejecting digitalization. This is based on fears, on lack of skills, lack of trust, and lack of orientation and support. They are lost. They see that it's coming, but they don't know from where to start. All surveys have shown that lack of financial resources at firm level is seldom a critical factor for starting the digitalization process. The cost of electronic devices and ITC connection has been decreasing quite substantially and is affordable for most of the enterprises. Buying a computer or accessing to cloud services is not costly. The problem is how to use this efficiently. So the role of the policy is basically to orientate and support small enterprises. And for each one to identify its digitalization journey, to understand when digitalization is needed, what it can bring, and what are the conditions in order to progress in the digitalization process. So it means to providing targeted services for each different type of enterprises. Well, also we have to say that in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a dramatic acceleration of the process of digital transformation. All business surveys conducted in the course of 2020 have shown that there has been an increase in the digital update by companies and in online sales. One of the largest surveys conducted by the SME together with IMSE shows that about 70% of SMEs in OECD countries are making more use of digital technology due to the COVID-19. Another indicator has been the unprecedented growth of parcel trade that is related to the expansion of e-commerce. For example, in Europe, we had an increase of 180% between 1919 and 1920 in terms of parcel trade in electrical machinery that include all the electronic devices. But when we look more in detail about who has been trading on e-commerce platform, we saw that not many SMEs have been able to participate and take up this opportunity. This is because they have limited in supply, rigidity in the production, and difficulty in managing the logistic process, both in getting the inputs in and the output out. So simply associating yourself to an e-commerce platform is not enough to really be able to benefit from this opportunity. It requires a much deeper process or the organization within the company. So when we talk about policy, there are a few considerations to keep in mind for policymakers. First, when we talk about reviewing an SME strategy and reviewing it under the light of the digital transformation, policymakers have to understand that digitalization is a much wider process that only concerning SMEs. So is effective this process when in terms of SME development, when it's connected to the wider national digitalization strategy and covering different domains of policy. We will look later on what are those domains. The other starting point is that at firm level, digitalization is a step-by-step process, which requires investment in equipment, in software application, in staff training on all these intangible that Francesco Menaresi has mentioned it before. And to be effective, you need to have a parallel development of all these different components. These require developing specific solutions for each specific firm. The starting point is a kind of audit on the firm's available resources, both in terms of human resources, skills, and managerial ability. The other issue is that digitalization is multifaceted. It covers many different domains, and there is a wide range of technology that leads to digitalization, but also carry important complementarities. When you started to adopt a digital technology or digital application, it's likely that you build up the capacity and you will understand the benefit of linking to other type of technology. So you start to progress on the technological and digital transformation path. A financing scheme that supports the buying of basic equipment and provide standard consulting services may not be enough to start and to spark this digitalization process. So Antonio, a wide approach is needed. Yes?
I'm just watching the clock. I have to rush you just a little bit.
Okay, I will finish.
To pick it up.
Soon.
Thank you.
Well, the next slide. These are the domains that are related to digitalization from a broader perspective. You can see there is market access, market opening, there is the building of trust, the digitalization in society, the jobs, and the innovation. The next slide, please. So when you look at the SME digitalization strategy, you should look at all these different domains, even if they are outside the standard mandate on SME policy institution. So you need much more coordination with other parts of the public administration and an open dialogue with all the different stakeholders to understand what are the critical points and the obstacle to proceed on the digitalization. I say that the state has a limited ability to regulate the process, but not that is not entirely true. There are some opportunities. For example, the state is a regulator in terms of access to ITC services. and to the ITC regulatory framework, has a role in logistics through the post office, is a provider of digital government services, and is an operator of digital procurement platform, as well as it can provide technical services and financial support to SMEs. The next slide. So in order to complete my presentation and to complement what Francesco Alfonso just presented, I would like to present very quickly the data that are coming out from the Digital Adoption Index of the World Bank and compare the position of the Eastern Partnership countries with those of other countries at the same level of development. If you look at the data that are in the next table, you can see that you can put the next, here are the data of the DAI. There are 3 dimensions, business, people, and government. You can see that in terms of business, the Eastern Partnership countries are not doing too badly. They are in line with other countries at the similar level of development, but they are behind quite significantly from the OECD countries. They are not doing, most of them, badly also in terms of government, with few exceptions, like, for example, Belarus. But they are doing better in terms of the digital index for the society. And you can achieve progress only if you have all the different indexes moving at the same speed, at the same time, because they all feed into each other. With this, I conclude my presentation, and I am available for any question.
Thank you, Antonio. I was rushing you a bit. Francesco Manarese has to leave us for another meeting shortly, and I wanted just a little time, 4 or 5 minutes, for if there are questions to any of the speakers, but especially to Francesco, who will be going. So I want to encourage you, type into the chat or raise your hand Zoom fashion if there are any questions on that extremely rich presentation with which Francesco began. Perhaps you can bring Francesco up on the screen so that we can see him and remember which
I am now
which Francesco, which of the Francescos.
Also, Francesca, I mean, it's okay. I just mentioned to the other meeting.
Yeah. No, if others, colleagues, I don't see.
I have a quick question, perhaps,
good.
before Francesco leaves. It's about one of the charts you showed us, Francesco, the one where you measure the interaction term between skills and technologies, which I find very interesting because that's, in a way, it captures a lot of what we try to convey as important messages. And my question is a bit technical, but it's about whether you see the magnitude of this interaction term to vary depending on the technology and how, if you see any pattern there.
Yes, I mean, the richness of the data allows us really to distinguish technology by technology, sector by sector, and also finally to interact this with the level of the managerial capabilities. So we have quite a lot. So the magnitude is indeed different. You can think about it. For instance, there's something which goes exactly in the direction which one would think, like for automation in particular, middle skilled workers are also quite relevant, okay? For big data analytics, for Internet of Things, we get generally a larger coefficients in terms of the complementarity between high skill and these digital technologies. Yeah, one thing which can be done in this type of analysis is also to study whether these complementarities changes across geography, for instance. And this actually explains sometimes the geographic divide across the country. In that case, it's Italy, so you may know that there is a strong divide between the north and the south. And you see that indeed in the south, skills are less complementary to digital technologies, because partly of the quality of the skill, but also, and that's what we have recently found, because of the quality of the management. As management boosts the complementarity between skill and of the workforce and technology, if you have a poor management, let's say poor quote unquote, I mean, let's say less skilled, less capable management, you are less able to reap the benefit of this type of twin it's a nice empirical result. I must say that theoretically has been discussed even in the past, but it was not difficult. It was generally difficult to identify.
Okay. We need to move on, but I just want to ask one question of my own. I mean, Francesco, how much work is going on then about the interaction between competition policy? For me, one of the central things, because what sets my alarm bells ringing is always the winner take most, the declining entry and exit, the decline of churn in many of our economies. And I can't help wondering how much competition policy is and the challenges that platform economies and so on raise. Just a word about that, please, before you.
There is a lot of work on that. Let me say that actually in the work of many colleagues in my division, I've recently, for instance, provided the evidence. I mean, there was quite a debate about whether this concentration issue, increasing concentration, was just a matter of the US, while the rest of the world also was not that affected. But unfortunately, we see that these actually affects also the other side of it. Okay. It also encompasses areas which are not necessarily directed by, in which sales are so largely used, channeled through platforms. So it works with platforms, but the winner, absolutely, but the winner takes most dynamics also is channeled by the scalability of intangibles per se. So it also, in a sense, it doesn't just link to the use of platforms. Indeed, there's a huge challenge in terms of competition policies, and the main challenge there is that a lot of competition rules, the rules which generally are on the basis of competition laws, I mean, are stretched a lot by this type of technologies. And I'm just mentioning one, and then. Usually, to understand whether there is a collusion, you need to find two firms actually competing, like they talk to each other. Okay, there is a nice result which shows that algorithms on the, completely just trained algorithms which do not speak between each other on a platform tend to collude over time, simply by interacting over time and understanding that collusion is the dominant strategy. So this
Fascinating.
Indeed,
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It has been published on Science quite not so many times.
Thank you. We must move on, but that was excellent. So now we turn to a panel of representatives of the region, particularly both private sector and government, and we begin with Mr. Sergei Sokolov, the Deputy CEO of Fed Enterprise in Ukraine, and he's going to talk a bit about the experience of digitalizing a business, the challenges and the enablers. And I believe he's not going to speak English, so you may want to switch on interpretation.
На русском включите перевод.
Hello everyone. I want to make my speak in Russian because it's more freely for me. Thank you.
Пожалуйста, слушаем вас.
Я хочу показать презентацию. Могу, да, сделать демонстрацию экрана? Видно, да, демонстрацию? Я хочу представить компанию Fed. Компания Fed занимается авиационным машиностроением. Мы производим много различной продукции для гражданской авиации, для вертолетов, беспилотных летательных машин и так далее. Естественно, мы имеем все необходимые сертификаты для ведения этой деятельности, в том числе и авиационный ISO 9100. Вот пример транспортного самолета Антонов 178 с нашими изделиями. Также мы работаем с европейской компанией по продвижению ионоплазменных двигателей на спутники связи. И также у нас есть контракты с Thales Alenia Space после системы охлаждения для нового типа спутников. У нас, естественно, много есть партнеров по всему миру. И у нас отличительная черта для нашего региона – это очень современное оборудование. У нас самое последнее стоит оборудование, станки, испытательные стенды, чистые комнаты для сбора космической продукции и так далее. Но все это, естественно, очень трудно и тяжело работает без современных систем цифровой трансформации. Конечно, мы используем современные ERP-системы для ведения всей цепочки от конструкторских данных, технологических данных и непосредственно самого производства. На данном слайде показан то, как в производстве производится учет и движение всех видов продукции. Это деталей сборочных единиц. Таким образом, мы отслеживаем все движение, видим его состояние и удостоверены в том, что ни одна операция из технологического процесса не была пропущена. Также мы используем различные способы регистрации фактов выполнения операций. Это можно делать у нас как на компьютере, так и на мобильных устройствах. Любые факты выполнения операции попадают в ERP-систему, где производится дальнейшая обработка этих данных. Дальнейшая обработка, это имеется в виду пересчет планов на следующую смену, на следующие сутки и так далее. Кроме всего прочего, мы используем с помощью ARVR технологий наши, можем смотреть производственные цеха, и в онлайне, если вы видите таблички над оборудованием, оттуда в онлайне из ERP-системы тянется то, что там происходит. Следующий шаг, который у нас запланирован, это использование IoT для получения информации непосредственно со станка в сравнении с ERP-системой и вывода соответствующей информации. Естественно, весь этот учет позволяет вести абсолютно полный учет материальных средств в различных разрезах. Мы можем смотреть как запасы на любых подразделениях, либо запасы по типам продукции, либо по инструменту материалов и так далее. То есть в любых разрезах мы можем эти данные получать. Это короткая презентация. Я в двух словах еще проговорю отдельный вопрос, решенный по конструкторской документации, согласованию в электронном виде технологической документации, архив технической информации. На этом всем строится непосредственно само производство и планирование производства. Основной целью всех этих вещей является то, чтобы наша компания могла выполнять заказы в срок и желательно с наименьшим временем исполнения заказа и меньшей себестоимостью. Это была краткая презентация. Спасибо за внимание. Готов выслушать ваши вопросы.
Если можно, перед тем, как перейти к следующему выступающему, если вы можете нам пару слов сказать именно о вызовах, которые вот стояли перед фирмой в связи именно с цифровизацией, и, может быть, о тех факторах, которые способствовали удачной цифровизации, удачному применению цифровых технологий.
Ну, вызовы такие, что авиационный рынок, он довольно, ну, скажем, с одной стороны, несколько длинный. Нельзя найти клиента, вот просто придя на рынок, нужно начинать проект еще с момента разработки самолета либо вертолета. И заказчик, как правило, ставит очень жесткие сроки по всему циклу от разработки до производства тестового образца, испытаний и уже поставки испытанных изделий. То есть, во-первых, это уменьшение всего цикла производства. Причем это касается не только авиации, естественно, это касается вот и космической программы, которую упомянул Сталис Alenia Space. Это первый момент. Второй момент, очень важно иметь доказательную базу, подтвержденную всем по прохождении всех этапах работ. То есть начиная от проектирования, испытаний и так далее. С помощью цифровых систем это делать гораздо проще и быстрее, естественно. Это вот как второй вызов. И третий вызов – это да, постоянно растущие требования по качеству изготовления, повторяемости, убедиться, что все было изготовлено именно так, как было запланировано, сделано и так далее. Ну и, естественно, уменьшение себестоимости, конечно, без этого деньги – это святое.
Спасибо. Спасибо большое. И теперь передам слово, switch languages, I think, to Keti Vachiberidze, the CEO of an e-commerce platform, the B2C in Georgia. Keti, you benefited from government support to help accelerate the digital transformation of your business. Could you tell us a bit about the digitalization journey, the type of support that was most useful to you? And also, you provide tools to SMEs in your country. We'd be happy to hear a little bit about that.
Hello again, thank you for the introduction, and I'm really happy to join you today and have an opportunity to share our experience, as we are one of the, as you mentioned, we are one of the tools for digital transformations in retail sectors, particularly in e-commerce. Before I go through the story, I would like to just shortly tell you what we do. B2CG is an e-commerce platform that allows businesses to set up an online store and start selling on the same day. Our platform comes with all the tools to manage every part of online business, such as online payments, last mile delivery, accounting system, ERP, marketing, and so on. Today, B2CG powers shops for all kinds of businesses, starting from local entrepreneurs to international global brands. And what's most important, we have managed to pull ahead our global competitors locally in Georgia, and currently we are the largest e-commerce platform in Georgia. So to start from the beginning, we launched our platform at the end of 2018, 6 months after, when we realized that the retail sector, in terms of digitalization, was underserved. And even there were global e-commerce platforms with quite great affordable conditions. At this time, the share of online and retail e-commerce was only 1% in Georgia, less than 1%, and existing online shops were served only like an online catalog without online ordering or delivery options. So meanwhile, the customer, the end users, were very actively shopping from international platforms such as Amazon.com and others. Even it took more than weeks to get the package. So we as a platform identified the main barriers that were hindering e-commerce development in the country and try to solve this problem. We all know that online shop is not only the attractive design of the website. Actually, it's digital business whose success is determined by essential services such as variety of payment method, flexible delivery service, inventory management. There are additionally language barriers in different countries, local text code and regulations that are not taken into account from global platforms. So we tried to meet all needs of local entrepreneurs and mostly small and medium businesses, and created country-customized solution approach by integrating all of these services. Of course, we could create a standard marketplace and offer retail businesses to sell their products through us, but instead we choose maybe technologically harder and challenging approach for us, but the great value for the businesses allowing them to create their own online shop and have the power and all the benefits to fully control their digital businesses. So by creating B2CG, we have fully overcome the technological barrier, but also our growth rate was quite high. We still had to convince SMEs and businesses that e-commerce was not a luxury. It was like a necessity, and it was must in today's world. Actually, there then came another barrier, and it called, and you and other speakers already mentioned that entrepreneurs had challenged to overcome their mindset, to change their mindset in terms of digital transformation. I'm sure it won't be surprising for you to tell that after pandemic start, it has fundamentally changed the picture. And in March 2020, after starting lockdown, the demand for the product has even tripled. And we were observing in live how businesses, SMEs were adopting to the reality. And our platform at this time was the perfect solution for them, the fastest and easiest way to digitalize their businesses. And what's most important, our company has become a key partner not only for SMEs, but also for the largest banks in Georgia and international financial institutions such as TBC Bank, Visa, USAID, and others. Together with them, we have successfully implemented several projects in terms of digital transformation of SMEs. And I'm very proud to tell you that in 1 year, we have managed to digitalize more than 500 businesses and help them to go online. Of course, there, as you already mentioned, there were a lot of factors that supported even our business to go through this path. And the regional support was one of the most important here. From the beginning, the government, and in particular Georgia's Innovation and Technology Agency, supported us with the funds that helped our platform to go to the market in Georgia. And what's most important, after 2 years, with the support of JITA and Bank of Georgia, in Georgia was conducted 500 Startups Acceleration Program that really helped us to accelerate our business growth, improve the product, and provide better solution for the market. And I hope that very soon we will be presented not only in Georgia, but also in our neighbor countries. And we have already started to work on it, and very waiting for this time to be presented in the region also. And one thing I also wanted to mention and underline, as you all already taught, that the technological the innovations and technology currently are providing a lot of really huge opportunities for businesses, for SMEs. And what we need and what the government need to do is to, as you already mentioned, to improve the skills, knowledge, and what's most important, increase the awareness even more. This is what I wanted to deliver today.
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful start. There'll be, I hope, some time for questions and discussions as well in a few minutes. But right now, I pass to, from Georgia, we pass to Moldova. Isaia Spinu is the head of the SME Digitalization and IT department at ODIM, which is Moldova's SME agency. Мне говорят, что он будет говорить на русском языке. Поэтому, может быть...
No, I will speak in English. I will present in English.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
That's fine. Either way, Nam все равно. In that case, I'm happy to pass you the floor to tell us a bit about the main features of ODIHR's program for supporting digitalization of SMEs.
Dear colleagues, hello everyone. In May 2020 was approved by the Ministry of Economy and Infrastructure, was approved SMEs digitalization tools as a short-term initiative to support business activities, to support SMEs during pandemic situation by trainings and to improve their online presence, e-commerce and process digitalization. The business support tools is currently structured in three main components: capacity building and trainings. Was a part of the initiative. It was possible to offer training structured in 5 models with 19 different subjects. This was possible due to the self-assessment questionnaire, self-assessment tools elaborated by us, available online and completed by the beneficiaries. It was mentioned that with this assessment we separated the different beneficiaries into 3 different groups, beginner, intermediary and advanced. Of course, all the trainings and consultants were online via online platforms. Financial support in form of a business voucher to help SMEs to develop their own web page, setting them on the socialization page, developing their online profile and the descriptions of companies and products, developing, adjusting the web page and add to marketplace platforms that offer online payments possibility and integrated logistical issues. The financial support offered by was of maximum €1,000. The second one was financial support in form of grants. This support was offered for the implementation of management systems, ERP system, CRM system, purchase of equipment or software for the purpose of introducing a new technology in the context of SMEs digitalization, and for the purpose of eliminating the risk imposed by the markets. The grant amount was about €10,000 with 10% co-financing. In terms of results, during in 1 year, we had 2 calls of proposal for SMEs, and as a result, achieves more than 600 applications, and the same number of self-assessment questionnaire was analyzed. So we tried to do better technologies of SMEs. We delivered 33 training sessions to 500 entrepreneurs and offers financing to 275 companies. This generating investment in economy about €1.5 million. Also, I want to express our gratitude and to thanks our partners that co-financed the initiative, the European Union and GIZ Moldova with financial support from the German government. From the implementation process, we would like to tell to our partners from another Eastern Partnership countries that are planning to launch similar support, coordinate with partners and stakeholders with might open of new perspective. In our case, we work with 2 projects with Go Line and with Startup Moldova. This 2 projects, Startup Moldova is powered by Moldovan ICT Association, develop different range of information concerning the SMEs digitalization, update self-assessment tools as it helps to provide tailor-made needed trainings, evaluate and archive results, and adjust the upcoming support. Thank you. If somebody have questions.
Thank you. We'll move on for now, but we will come back for questions and discussion in a few minutes. Okay. So please stay with us, I'm sure. And with that, we continue with Moldova, now turning to the private sector for a perspective from there. Ms. Olga Graur is the CEO of Izara Community LLC in Moldova. She benefited from ODIM's services. Her company benefited from ODIM's services to create an online B2B platform for and about women entrepreneurs. And we'd like to hear about your experience and about the value added provided by ODIM's services. What was most helpful to you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Olga, and I'm one of the applicants of digitalization program that was organized by Organization for the Development of the Small and Medium Enterprises sector. I will start with saying thank you for being a part of this event, hearing how digitalization can change the businesses worldwide. Through being an applicant and taking part of this process, I would like to underline the fact that ODIM is not only offering financial support, but are developing programs to educate entrepreneurs. Through the application process, I knew that I wanted to develop an inclusive online platform that can help people and at the same time use a correct strategy for the business development. But where can I get all the entrepreneur knowledge without any background in the field? Organization for the Development of the Small and Medium Enterprises offered applicant digitalization courses that incorporated themselves a lot of key factors that can help a young entrepreneur build a digital business, such as strategic planning, budgeting, digital marketing, social media, how to be safe online, and even how to expand your business to other countries. We learned from the experts in their fields, and we were prepared to not make the same mistakes, which I think is the most valuable experience that the organization can offer in order to develop a healthy ecosystem of entrepreneurs. Due to the financial support of ODIM, my team successfully developed in Moldova the first online platform that provides business information about private and public companies developed by women and help women freelancers to find online jobs. This way, any contribution from our platform expands to all the women of the Republic of Moldova. Any women that have professional skills can register on the platform and have the possibility to update a portfolio and find part-time jobs. Those women can find part-time jobs to support their family and at the same time have a freedom to work remotely with flexible hours, to have time to get involved in their family, and even if they're on or after maternity leave. Freelancers can be people who have professional skills in such areas as accounting, text writing, text translation, and any other jobs that can be done online. Our platform intends to provide both members and customers quality services on the ground of transparency and credibility. In order to pick a provider, members have access to the company freelancers, which offer all the professional information regarding the service. We aim to provide both members and customers quality services. That's why we focus on customer reviews and moderation. Since we are still in the process of implementing the program, I will speak a little bit of the results that we achieved. We already have 130 women registered on our platform that provide part-time services. We are constantly working on educating women on building themselves a great customer review and professional knowledge. And that is not all. We have a strategic plan that consists on building a jobs page that will have the possibility for entrepreneurs to post their projects in order to find easier the freelancers they are looking for and to engage a healthy relation between a freelancer and the client. Izara promotes gender equality in employment, and we will post open jobs at partner companies or within Izara member companies. Next month, we are finishing the Academy page, where women will benefit from training courses in digitalization, areas as information technology or digital marketing. Izara will have a course page for beginners, intermediates, or professionals. It will promote the employment of women in the field of information technology and will work with professional mentors in order to provide the most up-to-date knowledge. Subsequently, the Izara platform will develop an ecosystem of women development, starting with professional empowerment courses, employment, and even assistance if you decide to develop your own business with access to entrepreneurial members as mentors. That all thanks to the support of digitalization program. I am very thankful to the organization of the development of small and medium enterprises sector in Moldova, because their support helped to develop such an inclusive business model that helps a huge number of women in the Republic of Moldova. Thank you very much.
I'm still muted. There we go. Thank you very much as well. And now for a very brief comment on the Armenian perspective, I'd like to ask Diana Sarumova of the European Business Association to say a few words about that country before we then bring all the panelists back up for a time of questions and discussion from the floor.
Hello, everyone. Actually, it's not me that's supposed to make a brief presentation, but one of our member SME organization, the head of credit organization, Good Credit in Armenia, Artashes Tonoyan. Artashes, can you join the meeting?
Hi, everyone. Do you see me? Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for the invitation and opportunity to speak up. And a very interesting event. I actually want to present a case when we started a full digital transformation in a lending organization when we were operating in a brick and mortar, and then we transformed fully into online. But the good thing that while we were trying to solve certain pains we had in our brick and mortar ecosystem, we come up with certain products that eventually became spin-offs for us, and we are offering these services to SMEs in particular because relatively mid-scale SMEs have an interest in decreasing their costs. So let me give you a short couple of slides about why the digitalization is happening first of all in the banking sector. Usually is led by the banking sector, the financial services, probably followed by the telcos, and then you have other industries coming afterwards. So let me see if you see it. Do you see the future of online lending?
Yep.
Okay. So there has been lots of buzz, right? Which is artificial, robotics, cryptocurrency disruptors, and this buzz is being used quite heavily. I need to say that for the average SME entrepreneur in this country, at least in Armenia, I can't comment about others, it doesn't say a lot. But if you get to the specifics, especially the SMEs here would probably need to have a certain business enablers, and I'll address them later. But essentially, if you look on the banking report and if you look on the trends, the reasons are quite obvious why the digital transformation becomes as an imperative. And as you would see for the first 3 to 4 priorities based on the surveys, the digital gene has to be adopted quite frequently because the increase in the computing power, storage, and low cost of debt, plus big data and the availability of algorithmic advances, this is the supply side. This is essentially the infrastructure and enablers for the banking in particular to adopt the technologies. At the same time, we do have a pressure, which is competitive pressure and lower cost, reaching out the consumer and the increased sales on top of the regulatory pressure are all these the factors that do affect the imperative adopting the digital technologies. When it comes to the rendering the financial services, there is infrastructure dependency. So let's say if particular state is advanced in its policy and reforms to offer non-face-to-face generic identification solutions. So essentially it allows you to reach out the customer without asking him to come to the branch. That's important business enabler. And we have seen different countries following different routes. In Armenia, for the time being, it is industry driven. Different financial institution has solved the issue in its own way, how they identify a customer online. And another important aspect is the institution, or let's say to what extent there is development of the electronic signature. So whether the regulation and the infrastructure as such allows to people avoid wet signatures and to transact online. So these are the two important things I think that from the policy perspective are important to enable the digital transformation adoption by the businesses. And long story short, William, just one more comment. So one of our spin-offs is that we were in a brick and mortar. We had a lot of paperwork to be done. And we come up with the small platform in the cloud that allows to convert, scan the documents and place them in the cloud. And we realized there is offer, and we set up a separate company. And we do see that the small businesses are relatively keen to adopt that, because paperwork and archiving is a big challenge. And the adoption is going quite fast as long as the pricing is relatively cheap. So that was my kind of quick step in regarding what we have done here so far. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I want now to hand the show back to Antonio Spinelli, Antonio Fanelli, who will act as a bit of a discussant and also stimulate a bit of discussion and questions from the participants with our panelists. We have about 10 or 12 minutes for that. So please, Antonio, and perhaps if the panelists would turn their cameras back on, we'll put you all back up on the screen so that participants can see whom they're addressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Well, I have a few observations to start with. First, we have seen how important are domestically established platforms to encourage SMEs to go into the digitalization process. And now they are really proactive in helping SMEs in transforming their operation and get involved with both in the e-commerce, but also in changing the management and the way they operate. The second comment I would like to make is that we see how beneficial is the partnership between the SME agency, the innovation agencies, the banking system, and those platforms. The third point is that there is definitely strong demand for SMEs, because all the participants to the panel have indicated that there's been a very strong response from the companies, both in terms of response to the calls for proposal that we have heard from Moldova, as well as in application and partnership to the different platforms. So there is a future, and the future is not only consisting in participating to this large global platform, but is actually developing national resources. So that's, I think, is the starting point. Now we can start with the question from the audience. Anyone has any specific observation or question to the participant for the panel? Well, no question.
Don't be shy. Write in the chat. Raise your hand in the participants menu.
If there are no questions, I will ask Katie if we could tell us if she expects that the surge in demand that she has witnessed with the COVID will continue after the COVID restriction will be lifted, or she thinks that the pattern of consumption will return to the pre-COVID mode.
Thank you, Antonio, for that question. Actually, we already observed that after pandemic, after lockdown is more or less easier, the growth rate and demand is still maintained. with the numbers, I can tell you that we have the same percentage of growth in the first quarter of 2021 what we had in last quarter 2020. And you know that the December is the highest season for e-commerce, and mostly the highest records are reached in these months. But we are very happy to see that this this number is not going back; it's increasing or even maintaining the existing results. So we think that businesses already understand all the benefits of digital businesses, of online sales, of e-commerce, and they believed in this future and do not stop to continue their activities in e-commerce. So we are very happy to be. I see here one question addressing to me in the chat.
Yes.
Yes, please go on. So,
Oksana, maybe you will ask the question if you have some.
Yes, hello everyone, dear colleagues, dear participants. So, Kevin, thank you very much for your presentation. I had one question, because you said that, that your organization have been supported by the state SME organization, and on your turn you were supporting SMEs. So basically my question was, your main support to SMEs was to enter online platform to sell online, or you had specific support internal for the internal processes of the company, some logistics or anything else except the online selling and entering the platforms? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got the support from the JITA, Georgian Innovation Technology Agency, to support our operations as a platform. Yes, we mostly used all of these sources to develop our product even more, to make fit to the market, and use all the sources, all the resources to improve this process. After this support, we were able to bring better, higher quality and service to the market. So this process of e-commerce development we are doing by our own, but to manage all this internal, government really actively supported us. I mentioned the grant of matching grant program, and also the acceleration program was the acceleration programs worldwide are very strong position today, and it was one of the most important things happening in Georgia, not only in terms of business development, but also in terms of getting more trust on an international level as a platform.
Thank you.
well, any other question?
I see. Just looking at the chat, there's just a couple of chats, but neither is a question. Antonio, I don't know if you had anything for the other panelists to raise, please.
Well, maybe I will ask to the representative of ISARA. It can tell us how important is the basic training skills that you provide to the women that register to your platform, in order to have they are participating actively to the platform, or they are already trained, they're already familiar with the technology when they join the platform.
Yeah, okay. We have several different kind of women. There are women that want to start some courses in order to change their career, and we have also women that already had courses and they are just starting their own freelance career. So in order to help all the women, in order to gain more responsibility for freelancing and to accept women in freelancing, we are providing this support with training courses. And of course, not everyone is ready for it. Not everyone is ready to go online, but they're very willing to know all the knowledge. They're very willing to expand their practical skills. So that's why they're trying to learn all the training courses.
Thank you. Well, I would like also to ask to Isai Spinu from Odin, how you divide your resources in supporting digitalization between training, financing, and the other activity that you are conducting. What is the biggest component among the different tools that you're providing to enterprises?
When we speak about the trainings, with this part, we have a big help from our colleagues from Startup Moldova. They organized the trainings, they paid the trainers, and they prepare all the information for from our SMEs. All our budget was from financial support. We give 175 vouchers up to €1,000 and 100 grants until €10,000.
Thank you. And do you have a network of consultants that are operating in support of the companies? How you deal with providing the specific consultancy services?
We do a mix. When somebody asks questions or when somebody asks us for to help them to decide what they need, with our partners in partnership, we give them more information. But after the trainings, biggest part of applications ask us to change what they needed when they applied, and what they really need after the trainings.
Thank you. Finally, I have a question for Mr. Sokolov. We have heard how your company has gone into a really deep digital transformation and adopted all this technology. Did you get any external support in doing this? You got support and easy access to finance or support from state bodies in training your staff, introducing all these technologies, or you did all internally through your internal investments?
Understand the question. So we had a mix. Mostly we had this digitalization projects with the internal fundings, and but we won 2 grants with Horizon 2020 for digitalization some projects, and from our government, we are not a government company, we are a private company, so we only have some help, not with digitalization, but with all common operations.
Understand. Thank you. Bill, do we have more time?
I think we need to move to the poll, in fact. Thank you all very much. What we're going to do now is to put up a poll with some questions to see what the group as a whole thinks about some of these issues. Your responses are entirely anonymous. And while we process the poll, we're going to take a short break. So the questions will be up for several minutes. But after you've submitted your answers, feel free to turn off your camera and stand up and have a stretch or make a coffee. We will resume at noon Paris time. So we'll resume in about 6 minutes. We're taking a very short break along with the poll. So please feel free to answer the poll and then get up and stretch. If we get the poll up, please. Okay. I hope everyone had a good break. Welcome back for our last session. I don't know, Francesco, Daniel, should we throw up the poll results briefly before we move to the final panel?
We can, yeah.
Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. Could we put the poll results on the screen? So we see framework conditions for entrepreneurship standing out by a generous margin as the most important policy priority, which I think is quite widespread across not only the Eastern Partner region, but across many of the countries where we work. But interesting, in the second question, we have a more or less even split between access to finance and competitive pressure, openness, and market size, both absolutely critical concerns. Striking that no one seems to have seen IT skills and education, as important as those are, as being the main priority, given the option of choosing just one. So that's interesting and perhaps a little bit encouraging, because it suggests that the skills constraints are there, but perhaps not as severe as some others. So now I get to pass over the chair to another outstanding expert on SME policies with extensive experience in these issues and work in the Eastern Partner region most recently. I pass over the chair now to moderate the final panel to Jesus Lozano. Jesus, please.
Thank you very much, Bill. This has been a very exciting webinar. And now it is time to talk about the European best practices on how capacity builders are supporting the digital transformation of the SMEs. And to discuss about the topic, we have a panel of European speakers who will dive into the benefits of the digital talent generation as implementers of the digitalization of the SMEs. I know this is very exciting topic, but I would like to remind the speakers, first of all, to keep the pitch in the estimated time, so we can give the opportunity to the participants to have enough time for the Q&A. And first of all, I would like to give now the floor to Manuela Portier, who is the director of the European Affairs in CAP Digital Innovation Hub in France. Okay, Manuela, CAP Digital provides a plethora of services to help SMEs to achieve the next level of digital transformation, and we'll be delighted to hear about the various services that you offer, and as well as the more organizational aspects of your hub.
Sure, thank you very much. Do you see my screen first?
Yes, we see.
Okay, you hear me well as well?
Very well.
Okay, I will just put it in full screen. So now you have it. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this training. I'm really happy to be here today to present you our hub, our cluster, and I hope it will be also give you some ideas for your initiative as well. So my name is Manuela Portier. I'm the Director of European Affairs at CAP Digital, which is a French hub for digital and ecological transformation. So who are we? We are based in Paris, so I don't have to present you, I think, where Paris is, and in Lille. Lille is based a big city in the north of France, just close to Belgium border. And we are the biggest cluster dedicated to digital economy and sustainable development in Europe. Why the biggest cluster? Because we gather more than 1,000 members. They are mostly SMEs and startups. As you can see on the figures here, they represent more than 85% of our community. But we also gather laboratories, universities, large companies, VCs, business angels, also local authorities and association of industries. And we have been created 15 years ago, so we are really well implemented in the Paris and Lille regions. One of our most important domain of actions are events. We organized more than 100 events last year. Normally we organize even more, but due to the situation, we couldn't, and we merged to more digital events with more than 15,000 attendees. And we are a team of 40 staff members, but we also work with a pool of experts, 160 experts, which will give their time to help us to support our members. So they give their time, they give their expertise, and I will explain you how in 4 minutes. So more concretely, how are we organized and why we have been created? So we are an independent, non-for-profit organization, and this is also important for us because we also intend to have this purpose on our members. We are one of the 56 French, what we call pôle de compétitivité in French, or competitiveness cluster, which has been designated by the state 15 years ago, and then there is a new call for tender every 4 years to renew this label. And the idea of the state, of the French state, was to generate employment and develop a more dynamic, a more competitive economic dynamic behind this. And we have a hybrid scheme of funding. We are funded half with public money, mostly the regions, 50%, and also the other half come from the fees of our members and also services that we provide to them with a reduced price. So concretely, what do we do and for which purpose? We often define ourselves as a facilitator because what we intend to do is to support the rise, the emergence and development and experimentation of innovation based on technology, which have a strong social, environmental and economical impact. And we do this by bringing stakeholders together, stakeholders who may not have met otherwise from different sectors, and to make them work collectively. And as I told you, I've been created 15 years ago. At that time, we were, I would say, quite new in the landscape to address digital. Now digital is everywhere. So we also enlarged our focus, and the challenges we now address is that technology, artificial intelligence and data are really in our vision as a service of economic, societal and environmental issues. And we address this in 4 different, I would say, big sectors. One is retail, also because we absorbed another cluster last year, which was dedicated to retail. Cultural and creative industries, which is really important for us also because it's, I would say, our first big domain in which we were involved at the beginning. Education, when I say education, is the EdTech community, but also human resources, how to find talents, for example. Sustainable city, so everything is to environment, ecological transition, housing, building, renovation, and health. And health is, of course, digital health, and we include also in this silver economy, sports, and well-being. Sorry for the mistake on the slide, not well-being, but well-being. So concretely, what do we do to address this challenge and to achieve this mission? We have 5 big family of services. I will focus today, because I do not have so much time, on the 3 first one. So support to R&D and innovation. We also support our startups to grow, to accelerate. We provide digital transformation and open innovation programs. And we also have, as a 2 other domain of services, we provide inspiration through documentation, publications, surveys. We have one yearly catalog to know what are the trends in the digital sector, and networking and visibility, which mostly through events. So R&D and innovation. What we do is we try to support our member from the very beginning of the process. So information, just first to raise awareness about call for proposal, for example, in R&D domain at regional, national, and European level. So we have this monthly meeting, R&D corners, which gather about 50 to 100 participants each month, in which we present call for proposals. Then those who are interested, we propose individual diagnostic to be able to guide them to the right funding, and also sometimes to tell them not to go because they're not ready, for example. So we are really here to advise them on the best solution. Then through our pool of experts, we provide also, we read their proposal, we try to check the eligibility, the relevance of their project, the state of the art, and we give a label to the best projects also. And then we also provide visibility, as I told you before, through events or matchmaking tools and exploitation of their results. And I would say the two first are really open to everyone, the information and diagnostics. And then we reserve the other services to our members only. And just to give you some figures, we have received more than 3,000 proposals of projects to get our feedback on them since the creation of the cluster. We have labeled more than 1,000, and half of them have been funded. Now talking about acceleration of startups. Most of our service is on access to private funding, because this is really what startups are looking for. A bit like before, we first do an individual diagnostic to check and to challenge the value proposition and the funding strategy. We also help them to prepare the pitch deck for investors, and we organize very regularly pitch sessions in front of our investors. And I will not go too much in detail on this because just after me, Philippe Petitpont from Newsbridge, which is a member of Cap Digital, will also explain this service he received from Cap Digital. And just for you to know, we have really a nice community, because the majority of French unicorns are members of Cap Digital. You have here some logos. And startups and SMEs from Cap Digital have raised more than 500 million euro, and 80% of them, it was through our services. And the last services I would like to present to you today, it's open innovation programs. Also, Philippe will give you an example of a program in which he was involved. So the idea is first to support corporates or local authorities to define their challenges. So it's first to help them to identify their needs and to analyze how to formulate the objectives. Second step is really to help them to scout the best startups, the best solution providers to achieve their goals. And then we support them to create functional prototypes. So we are really in the position of having a win-win situation between the solution providers and the challenge holders. And we have had about 100.
Please excuse me, Manuela. I would like you to rush a little bit.
I finished. Just 100 of connection between them last year, and more than 100 projects in the creation of the cluster. And to finish, this is just to show you also that we do not act only at regional level, but also at European level through our network of partners, and also with our European project in which we are involved. Also through EIT. So there is William Jonker from EIT Digital. We will present you this great community. And this is really helpful also to propose additional services to our members. So thank you very much, and I am at your disposal if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuela. We'll have time for questions after, but I would like to highlight something very important that was totally in the end. As facilitators, I mean, I think it's clear from this morning the importance of supporting the ICT sector, as I said at the beginning, as implementers of the digital transformation. But here you said something very important. It's not about only on supporting the creation of IT startups. It's also about researching. So it's also about, first of all, find the needs and the demands from the different industries. Then second, supporting, of course, the research and development of the digital solutions that those industries are demanding. And then third, ensuring the transfer of the, let's say, of the developed technologies to the market through the creation, of course, of startups and spin-offs. Let's go now with Philippe Petitpom, who is CEO and co-founder of NewsBridge. Philippe, Manuela just introduced you before, so you are one of the beneficiaries, companies, startups of CAP Digital. So could you tell us, please, a little bit more about your digitalization journey and the value added from the services that you receive from CAP Digital?
Yes, thank you for this invitation. So yes, it's really something that was really helping us. I mean, our company NewsBridge was created 4 or 5 years ago. Just to give you an example of what we do, because this is not the subject there, but we are working on artificial intelligence to help journalists and editors in media industry, on sports broadcast, to find and really valorize and monetize their video content, or their legacy feed, archive and everything. So basically we detect what can be interesting in the picture using AI and in the audio to really valorize and give an immediate access to what is really relevant and to create new revenue stream. So we are now 25 people, and we have, of course, a lot of our team that is dedicated to research and development. And well, CAP Digital helps us in 2 different ways. As Manuela said, the common point between all those ways of helping startups is about meeting the good stakeholders at the good time. So for us, there was 2 different projects with CAP Digital. The first one was an open innovation project with key customers. We'll just speak about that just later. And the second was about funding strategy and finding money to finance and research and development on our international growth. So the first one is about open innovation project. And concretely, how does that work? It was the customer was France Télévisions. So France Télévisions is the French national broadcasters. It's like the BBC, but in France, it's exactly the same. So it's a big customer, big public broadcasters. On well, for a 2-year-old startup working with public broadcasters is nearly impossible. It's 2 different worlds. And CAP Digital was helping France Télévisions to do an open innovation strategy. So the key was to work for them with the head of the newsroom, of the news factory, to help them finding a new way of producing news content, TV shows. And France Télévisions was looking for a startup to help them both to acculturate their collaborators, their employees, and also to deploy a new strategy, a new way of making and building and editing news content. So the first one is it happened like a tender, but instead of really sourcing of a supplier or a vendor, it was really to have a startup that was really at the beginning, and the focus was to help the startup building the product with users, with journalists, with editors, to make sure that this technology, this piece of technology, that will be really useful after the end of the open innovation project. So the open innovation project was about 6 months, and the goal was at the end to have a prototype that can really be on air. And well, we achieved that, and really the benefit we have with them is that our product that was not really mature at the beginning. I mean, we had really nothing at the beginning. We had just some idea. I mean, we are engineers, so we need to have real users in front of us, and having these public broadcasters in front of us was really something we couldn't dream of before. So it was really quick, and CAP Digital really was helping France Télévisions to achieve this strategy, because you have to every week to have meetings with users to explain to them, okay, this is new technology, it won't be on air soon, so just be open-minded, and you will see in the next few months you will see the difference. So at the end, France Télévisions came out with a real strategy for their news content, for the news show, and also we had a product that was really ready and was in advance compared to the competition. So lots of our research and development was really implemented into products that was really usable for journalists. So it was really something very powerful. And I think we want maybe 2 years of wisdom in 6 months. So it was really something that that seems to be incredible said like that, but it was really working. The second way Cap Digital helped us, it's more recently, it was in 2019. So we had our first customers, and then like many startups, we needed funds to keep growing our research and development, our product, and then to go broad and to have really a worldwide expansion. So we were looking for our first fundraising, and I mean, it was for all the founders, myself and the other founders, the first time we were in this kind of process. It's our first company. So Cap Digital helped us to find money by 2 different things. The first one was really to, as Manuela said, it's some kind of labeling the company so that they investigate about our business models, advise some stuff about how to really tell the story about Newsbridge. And because we were really in the sprint, it's very difficult sometimes to just take a step up and be able to explain what we are doing to investors. And this labeling strategy was in 2 phases. The first one is to have some kind of pitch training. So I mean, it's maybe 50 pitch training sessions. So it's a lot, and it's very difficult, but it's really working. At the end of the 50th pitch, you are really ready. And then you start meeting VCs and investors. And this is very interesting because when you are meeting VCs and investors, it's more like the VC will be kind of a coach. So you are not trying really to sell officially your product or your company to the VC, so that the VC can really read inside who you are. And this is when you are at seed level at the beginning, it's really the team is really the most important step for the VC. So it's really what makes a company. So and at the first meeting in front of VC, well, the pitch goes on, and well, it was maybe the 51th, so it was really nice. And then it was the VC was Elia Partners, and we met a few there, and it came out to be our first VC during our fundraising when we joined the Deep Tech Fund at Elias, and now. This is the second round with them. It was at the beginning of this year. And this is one of the best we can think of for our company. And so everything is thanks to those labeling or those pitch contests we done with Cap Digital. So clearly we weren't there without Cap Digital, and this is those 2-step strategy are very, very efficient and reliable for a startup on scale up like us. Yes.
Thank you very much, Philippe. It is incredible, your story, and I'm very glad. And I really wish you to have an extraordinary success. And I mean, it is incredible because you're touching something that is really important for facilitators, for SME agencies, innovation agencies, the most important for accelerators, incubators, investors. When we talk about technology transfer, if there is no transfer, if there is no possibility to connect with the market, to connect with the future customers, to do proof of concepts, you mentioned very clear, you were developing your product with the industry owners. Okay, then obviously after they became your early adopters, and then future clients. So obviously, you are a very good example about how a facilitator should connect the knowledge. We're talking about R&D, we are talking about the startups, incubation, also with the capital. We're talking about investments. Our coming pitch is very important on that, coming speaker, but also with the market. I mean, creating startups without the connection with the industries that we pretend to digitalize means nothing. In the end, you don't give opportunity to the startups to grow. And it's the only way as we may see in your case, to validate the potential market. Is working with the market since the idea stage. And this is the most interesting because I'm also investor. It is the most interesting for investors is to validate the business model and to validate the product and to validate the team, because you've been working with the market since the very beginning. Okay? So thank you very much for raising this very interesting topic. Let's go now with Willem Jonker, who is the CEO of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, the EIT Digital, that I'm very well connected. It is the largest digital innovation community and is working towards accelerating of the digital transformation of the companies across Europe. So Willem, please, will you be, we'll very appreciate hearing about your various activities and services inside the EIT.
Jesus, thanks very much for having me here. It's really a pleasure, and it is really good to be amongst friends. Manuela already mentioned it. Cap Digital is one of our partners in France with whom we collaborate, and we will get even a presentation afterwards from Pratisha from CAS Director, who successfully worked with us last year to raise money for the company. So it's great to be here with all of you. I will share my screen.
Very good.
And then I hope that you can see my presentation. So what I will focus on in my presentation is how we as EIT Digital, through our ecosystem, but also our accelerator, support scaling up ventures and SMEs. So first of all, our setup. We are operating from a pan-European ecosystem, and actually we're a partnership. So we are connecting to main innovation actors across Europe. As I just said, Cap Digital is one of them. In France, we have universities, we have companies, we have startups, we have research organization. All in all, we have more than 300 members all over Europe in the locations that you see. And from that ecosystem, we support both innovation and entrepreneurship, which will be the focus today, but also entrepreneurial education, because skills are key for the development of digital technology and for the digital transition and growth that Europe is currently experiencing. So if you look at our instruments that we have on our innovation and entrepreneurship, we actually have a funnel that we call stand up, startup, scale up. So very early on in our partnership, we monitor opportunities, emerging technologies, teams, and we spot them, we support them with deep hacks, we support them with meetings, connection, and from that, we try to select those teams and technologies that are really suited to create startups, and then after that, being scaled up at a global level through our accelerator. And if you look at our accelerator is really focusing on giving a base service to scale-ups in order to improve their presentation, their pitch deck, but also look at their cap table, give them advice on specific areas to develop and so on. And then more specifically, we offer so-called access to finance and access to market services. And the names speak for themselves. So access to markets is all about helping them in and beyond our ecosystem to find customers for their products. And access to finance is to connect to our large investor network across Europe and even beyond in order to generate investments and help scale-ups raising funds. And you see a bit of our track record here. We had our 10-year anniversary just last year. We raised over $1 billion of private capital for our portfolio. And we supported more than 400 startups all across Europe. Especially in those areas that are at a more early stage of developing their innovation ecosystems and developing their startup culture and their accelerator skills, we have a program to support them, which is called the EIT Digital Venture Program. And that is really very early stage support and to help actors in the countries that you see colored green with the know-how that we have, and we can help them also to transfer knowledge from the core investment and accelerator startup hubs in Europe, like you have in London, like you have in Berlin, like you have in Paris, but also in the Nordics, Stockholm, Helsinki. So in this way, we help to get a more balanced spread over Europe and to support talent in those regions. And nothing is better than just concrete examples. So I want to close with a few very concrete examples. Conex actually won our so-called EIT Digital Challenge in 2014. And then they successfully got Deutsche Bahn and SNCF as launching customers. And after having had a few early rounds of investments, in January this year, they achieved a 66 million Series C financing. So this is an example of a company that emerged in 2014 and 7 years later is not a unicorn yet, but definitely a centaur worth a couple of 100 million euros. Another very nice example is Security Matters in the area of cybersecurity, where the company, as a spin-off of a Dutch university, was actually not really growing. So the team was expanding, but not really growing. Then they joined us in 2016, and we helped them to raise a first Series A of 4.4 million. And only 2 years later, because this was really fueling their growth, not only through the injection of the finances, but also because this investment brought them in touch with key customers and they expanded very quickly their business. And only 2 years later, the company was acquired by Forescout at a price of 113 million. So these are two very concrete examples where you can see that in relatively short time, deep tech companies can grow very fast, also in Europe. I mean, these stories are not just the stories of Asia or of the US. We can do this here in Europe as well. When we are focused, when we have the right team, when we have the right networks, we can make it happen. Another story which is a little bit earlier in its development is Falco. And that was a French scale, or is a French scale-up that is supported by us. They are in the mobility area with fleet management in cities. And we help them to raise 5 million. And I hope in a few years from now, I will also be able to mention them as yet another centaur that grew out of Europe with the help of our ecosystem. And the final one that I want to show you that's even earlier, because we just started this, and this is about last mile autonomous delivery. If you look in the city center, there's so many delivery services that the city is almost crowded by people delivering packages to the doors of citizens, and you would like to optimize that. And actually LMAT is all about that. It allows cities to install a delivery platform with autonomous vehicles and have city hubs at the city borders where the packages are delivered and then they are transported to the individual customers. And we are currently running with LMAT, with launching customers in Finland and in France, and also starting in Germany to have this delivered in specific cities. So that gives you a bit of a flavor what EIT Digital does and how also in Europe you can simply start and grow very successful your digital business.
Thank you very much, Willem. Those are very impressive insights. Okay, I would like to highlight here, as we mentioned before, on this journey of or this responsibility on the talent generation by creating tech startups that will digitalize the industries. Obviously, the access to capital is one of the most important, offering access to capital to the startups, one of the most important topics, maybe one of the most difficult to find in our region. Obviously, we are not in the heart of Europe, but it is amazing how can you show that obviously through the proper acceleration, through the proper education, and through the proper access to capital, we may find amazing startups. I know 2 of them, even I'm trying to participate as a business angel in the last one. So it is incredible also to see how, I mean, those examples about how startups can be born in any region with the support, okay, not only because of the team, not only because it's also with the support of organizations like the EAT, okay. So this is highlighting the responsibility on our region, on the Eastern Partnership countries, on how SME agencies and innovation agencies, they should have to take care of every aspect and every resource that our entrepreneurs will need on their journey, on accessing to capital, sorry, on accessing to capital, knowledge, and market. Thank you very much. I have a very interesting question for you in the end. So let's go now with Patricia Estreleca. I'm very sorry, I'm Spanish and we don't know how to pronounce. So
Patricia Strzelecka.
Strzelecka. Okay, so Patricia is the Chief Commercial Officer of Cash Director. Patricia, Cash Director has benefit from the services of the EIT Digital when it comes to accessing to a network of investors and business development in general. Would you mind telling us a bit more about your company and the value added of the services that you received from the EIT Digital?
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you very much for having invited me. Pleasure to speak to you. So I'm Patricia, easier in English than Patricia. I'm also the co-founder of Cash Director. So I've been working in the company as a co-founder since the beginning. We are a fintech scale-up, and what we do, we offer a digital financial assistant for SMEs. Cash Director is an end-to-end platform for invoicing, payment, cost booking, collection, cash flow management, and the platform is integrated with online banking to be able to make available the platform to the SMEs using existing sales and communication channels of the local banks. So that's what we do. We now have over 100,000 users on the platform, SME users on the platform, and work with several banks. So why are we where we are? Our target customers are micro and small companies, and we know that all over the world there are more than 200,000 SMEs. They contribute over 50% to the global economies, but they are still underserved and underfinanced. Why is that? It's like that because banks perceive the micro and small companies as risky, unprofitable, difficult to work with. So with Cash Director, we decided to help in this process and to give a tool, automated platform to the SMEs to better manage their finance and through this become a more reliable partner for banks to get financing. On the other hand, we also give access, real-time access for the banks to the accounting data of the SMEs. So banks can also better, let's say, analyze the situation of the SMEs and give them personalized financing when they need it and the way they need it. All this is possible, of course, thanks to technology. So we use AI, machine learning, rule engines to give SMEs an automated solution, which till now or in the past was available only to enterprise clients. So when we think of ERP systems, these systems were available only to corporate clients and were very expensive. Today, thanks to technology, we can give simplified but still similar functionalities to the SMEs at a fraction of the cost which used to be paid by the enterprise clients. Yes, so and now let me comment on what we believe, how we understand digital transformation, what digital transformation means to us. For us, digital transformation is a way to free up the valuable time of professionals, of managers and accounting finance professionals, free up their time by automating repetitive tasks, simple repetitive tasks, in order for the professionals to have time to draw conclusion from the data and give advisory, consultancy, help company owners to take proper decisions. So this way, through the automation, accounting, let's say many of the tasks, are automated. But also for the business owners, the automation is helping them save time, which they used to spend on bureaucracy, paperwork, save time on understanding their daily finances, and really focus on increasing revenue and contributing to the local economies. Yes, so now how EIT Digital helped us. The company Cash Director was created some years ago in Poland. Poland is not the key European economy. We are very ambitious, but we are not neither the key market nor the key economy. So for a Polish scale-up, it is not easy to expand internationally, and having EIT Digital as a credible partner to introduce us to the target customers, to help us presenting our technology and solution to corporate clients in Europe and also to investors was absolutely crucial. So first of all, we've been introduced to banks in several European countries, which are our corporate partners, so potential partners, potential clients. We've been invited to some international conferences where we had the opportunity to have one-on-one meetings with representatives of both the banking industry and the VC industry. Also, we've also went through the fundraising process. So, many of, many of the companies, many of the scale-ups, which also spoke before, like my colleague Philippe from France, when we are in the fundraising process, there are, many VCs, but it's not easy to get a warm introduction to the right people. So, really getting this, being introduced to the right people on the VC side by reliable, renowned partners such as EIT Digital, which immediately positions us as a scale-up startup in a fundraising process, immediately positions us in a better way and helps us having the discussions with the decision makers and helps us also present our business solution and technology the right way, the way the VCs expect this. So during this process, we were able.
Patricia, I didn't mind. I would like you to rush a little bit.
Yeah, well, I actually finished. I just wanted to finish that during this process, we were able to make our round A. And I was really very delighted to be part of the EIT Digital Accelerator.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations very much. Well, another very good example, Cash Director, as the importance on offering access to market also inside the acceleration and incubation programs. But I would like to talk about digital transformation here. I mean, in the end, why it is necessary for the governments to empower or to support, the entrepreneurial ecosystem is because, as we may see here, Cash Director is now offering the financial sector, the financial industry, a technological tool that is impacting on the digitization of the business processes. In this case, we are talking about the cash flow control and the direct interaction with the banking sector. So obviously, there are many benefits for the companies, for the industries, to become more competitive. There are many benefits, but obviously here is about cost savings, about time savings, and this is the way that any kind of company in any kind of sector can also benefit from this kind of technology. So I think it's a very good example about multi-sectorial technological tool that can totally help any company to become much more competitive. And to close this session, I would like to introduce to Mark Donges from, he's the Deputy Director of Mittelstand 4.0, so he's the competence center in Berlin. And Mark, you are the Deputy Director of these local competence centers in Berlin, Germany, supporting SMEs in adopting digital solutions. Could you please briefly tell us about the services that you provide, or that are provided by the competence center, and share with us some success factors that our colleagues from the Eastern Partnership countries should keep in mind when offering similar type of support?
Yes, of course. I'm not sure if you can see my screen, my presentation.
We can. No, not now, not now. Can you show
sorry.
it again?
This should be it.
No, okay, now.
This is, you see the slides?
Yeah, the
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yes, as mentioned, my name is Mark Donges. I'm Deputy Head of the Department of Grant Projects at BBMW, which is the German Association for Small and Mid-sized Enterprises. And I'm about to present our biggest project, which is the Mittelstand 4.0 Competence Center Berlin, a digital innovation hub that has been working for 5 years now already in supporting small and mid-sized enterprises. Let me briefly explain to you the construct that is behind it, because we are funded by the Federal Ministry of Economy and Energy. That's how we are able to also provide all of our services, all of our offers that we have for SMEs for free. And we are nested in this big initiative of Mittelstand Digital. It has about 26 centers, which are spread geographically all over Germany. And also thematically. So that means we also have one competence center, for example, that focuses on e-commerce, on how to have digital sales channels or e-standards, or maybe a digital communication. But most of all, these centers are all geographically distributed in order to reach the SMEs, which are traditionally very locally rooted as well. As I've been mentioning, we have been working for 5 years already behind the Competence Center, or also Gemeinsam Digital, as we call ourselves. We are headed by BBMW, the Association of Small and Mid-sized Enterprises. We have around 300 representatives also in all kinds of regions in Germany, which means we have a very good access to this target group. And we are supported, of course, by our scientific partners, the Hasso-Plattner Institute, which is also doing our workshops, and the Technical University of Brandenburg, which is also implementing projects directly with companies. So the topics that we've chosen that we want to support SMEs on are very broad. So they are taken directly out of the daily lives, so to say, of entrepreneurs. And it really goes from the topic of HR, like how do I make sure all of my employees are on the same page when we go through a change management, when we go through a change process in our company. We also talk about business models. So how can I, for example, digitally expand my business model? And it goes also to the topic of artificial intelligence. So is that something for my company? And to basically also bring the SMEs to that point where they can decide themselves. Is that a technology that is worth looking at for my specific case and my specific company? So our offers are based on 4 pillars, so to say. We, of course, give an orientation. We have a lot of companies that are coming to us that are sensitive about the topic. They know they have to do something, but they do not know how to start or what to do even, which is also why we provide a digital maturity check. I will talk about it a little bit later on. We talk a lot about best practice stories of other SMEs that successfully transformed their companies. We have big information events. We have roadshows going to all over Germany. We have, of course, webinars since the pandemic. and a lot of flyer and information material. A big key part is also the workshops that we are doing. We also have startup tours where we visit already very digital startups, and they talk about to more classical SMEs, let's say, how they approach things. And of course, we implement the projects directly with SMEs on board and also show those solutions in our showroom. We are focusing very much on micro-learning. So we have learned SMEs and entrepreneurs, they have either very little time or very little money to innovate. So this is why we focus on very small formats. For example, little flyers that are just step-by-step guides on how to, for example, let's say, on the elements of what is a good website for an SME, or the elements of a good emergency plan on IT security for the own company. So very small and specific questions that really help in the daily lives of digitalizing, so to say. And we've also launched a briefly explained YouTube series where we, in 3 to 4 minutes, also transfer knowledge that is like easily digestible, so to say, and can be like requested whenever it is necessary. I've already mentioned our digital maturity check. So companies can do this basically. It takes like 45 minutes, and they receive instantly a final report where they see how they score on different areas, like, for example, digital strategy, or the product or the business model. And they will also always be also classified so into 5 categories, either pioneers at the one end, or as we call them, dreamers on the other end. And also then be referred to specific trainings and workshops that we also do to support them and to get better on the score, so to say. So we made it also measurable, this whole process. Just to mention a few of our projects that we've done about 110 of these projects in the last 5 years. And do not focus on any specific sector here. So there is, for example, the manufacturing company where we digitalized the incoming goods department with a digital dashboard that makes all information available in real time to all departments. We have sensors for the watering system on a cucumber farm, for example, that notify the farmer as soon as the pumps fall out. Or we have also a digital showcase in a retail store for glasses, so people can try on with augmented reality also those glasses they sell there, even when the shop is closed, via a screen in the front. That's just very briefly as some examples of what we do. Also on the status quo in the German Mittelstand, I will just mention briefly, the pandemic has given here a really big push. So now 97% of SMEs see digitalization as a possibility rather than a risk. And a few years ago, like 2 years ago, that number was at 89. So we've seen a big push also for SMEs here on digitalization. And we can also see that the need for support is really still there. So in all of these 5 years, we have now informed over 61,000 people about this offer, this funded project by the ministry. We have done 108 digitalization projects with companies directly, where we either implemented something directly or wrote a concept for the digitalization. And all of these solutions are also presented on our website. So companies can see if there maybe is another company that had a similar problem, how did they solve it, what was the solution for them. This is all searchable also on our website. And we've recently reached 219,000 visits to our website. So there's still really a big request for help and support on digitalization. And I'm coming to the last and most important part of this presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are our learnings of 5 years of now supporting SMEs. So I think it's extremely important, the topic of language, as I've formulated here. Do you speak SME is a really important question. because we have seen if there is a scientific publication on digitalization that is 80 pages long, you will not reach any SMEs. If you have an information event on digitalization that maybe takes place in the aula of a university, SMEs will also not feel spoken to. So you have to really make it as low barrier, hands-on and as practical as possible in order to have a successful knowledge transfer here. We've also seen that SMEs learn best from their peers. They quickly shut off if you talk about success stories on digitalization of bigger companies, maybe even global companies. They really like to learn from their peers and how other also small and mid-sized enterprises did it. And also see like what they invested and what was the measurable outcome then for them in order to make it as visible as possible. Of course, qualification is absolutely key because we have the problem that here in Germany, for example, the Mittelstand is used to be able to create the knowledge that they need for their company in their own company. This is not the case with digitalization, which is why qualification offers are really, really important, like workshops and more intensive seminars.
Mark, please excuse me for interrupting you.
Yes.
We are running out of time, so please, I would like you to start concluding.
Okay, then let me have this one last sentence. I'm going to skip the other parts, but it is really important to also look at the bigger picture, because as weird as it may sound, the goal is not to move those companies forward on digitalization, but to make them more resilient and more competitive. And for that, of course, digitalization is an incredibly important factor, but also other factors like ecological and social sustainability. That those are other factors as well, and you have to really think those three factors all together. Sustainability understood in an economical, ecological, and social way as well, and include also factors of corporate digital responsibility, for example, in order to have a round offer of bringing companies to a sustainable transformation and making them more competitive and more resilient. That is it, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. I totally agree with you with your conclusion. I think this presentation, I mean, what you are doing, and congratulations, by the way, it is very important, because in the end, when we talk about digital transformation of any industry, we are talking about 80% digitalizing their mentality, the mindset. So let's say help the directors, the employees, the stakeholders inside the company to have this digital mindset in order to adopt the technologies. We're talking until now about how important it is to provide industries with the tech tools through the creation of tech companies, but it is much more important to, as we said, my colleague from Georgia, I think before, it is much more important to educate, to raise awareness. Awareness is super important. You are doing here, and you show on the benefits of the technology. So to start, and this is the best, the only good part of the COVID is that it was, I mean, the COVID is raising this awareness on the need of digitalization, but also to educate the companies, the SMEs, to have this digital culture that will allow them to develop this digital strategy that also will allow them to take the advantages of the digital tools. So what you mentioned here is purely on awareness and education, and for me is also maybe the key when we want to face the digital transformation of any industry. So thank you very much. Well, I guess we have time. I'm not sure, but at least we have maybe 10 minutes to go through questions. I'm not sure. Let me please check the chat. But if someone would like to ask any question, please feel free to take the mic, or maybe to type it on the chat.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank OECD for organizing this very interesting webinar. My name is Elmar Mamadov, and I represent government of Azerbaijan. I would like, first of all, to mention that SME Development Agency of Azerbaijan has also started last year broad digital transformation program, and I believe that during the next webinar in September, They will also present their case. And my question to panelists and also to OECD on development of human capital, because from my personal point of view, it is very important in order to ensure successful digital transformation. It's very important also to develop human capital in East Partnership countries. Because if we compare the previous session and this session, we can clearly state that in the previous session, when we reviewed cases from Eastern Partnership countries, mostly we reviewed application of these innovations in this. But in this last session, which I found very interesting from OECD experience, almost all speakers mentioned importance and cooperation with the universities and research centers, which at the end of the day will produce not only productivity but also innovations. Universities of Azerbaijan are very keen to develop cooperation in this field. And my question to OECD and to speakers, how Eastern Partnership countries, and particularly Azerbaijan, our universities can benefit through this project for development of human capital on digital transformation. Because at the end of the day, as I already mentioned, human capital produced by universities will work in SMEs. This is my question to all panelists and OECD. And once again, I would like to thank OECD for organizing this very interesting webinar.
I agree. This is a very important topic on talent generation. That's because we mentioned many times here. So create the talent to obviously digitalize the companies. I would like to invite one of our speakers. I think maybe Mark, because you went very deeply into awareness and education, maybe you have to or you would like to answer the question. But of course, Manuela, Wieland, if you would like to add some comments here, please, you're welcome. I'm not sure. Mark, is still connected? Can you hear me? Or maybe he disconnected. So then, Manuela, please, or Wieland, would you like to add some comments about the importance of the education and talent generation for the digital transformation?
Yes, indeed. It's totally true. Sorry, Willem.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
we have some minutes. We have some minutes.
Okay. It's totally true, and it's of high importance. As for example, at Cap Digital, we have also developed some partnerships with higher education institutions. We are a member of our network, and also with schools. And we often organize, we have, for example, a program for 5 years now called How I Met My Startup. And this program is kind of 2 days roadshow for students to discover the work of startups. And in reverse, startups can have the opportunities to dig for talent to populate the startups. And we also have a platform on which you can use to publish a job application, for example, and we also take advantage of events, for example, to organize kind of job fairs. And for sure, when we have startups coming to us, I would say the two main things they are asking us is, I want to get money and I want to get talent. So for sure, it's a high need, and we try to solve it through connection between our members and to have this talent versus our startups.
I guess, Wieland, you would like also to add some comments.
Yeah, as I already said in my presentation, next to the innovation pillar, we have a whole education pillar that was not really the focus of my talk. I can say a few words about it. So we have a pan-European master school, and that's actually implemented as a network of universities that on a couple of very important programs, like, for example, data science, cybersecurity, work together and offer this as a kind of virtual pan-European master program. And that has a couple of advantages because it brings the entrepreneurship into those universities. And of course, it helps us to attract talent to Europe. of course, it's not only about attracting talent, but make sure that they stay here. And what we do is we really make sure that when they do their internships, when they are working on specific projects during their studies, that they are really connected to the scale-ups and the startups in the ecosystem. And that's also a culture, a mindset. So, of course, people know the big brands. At the same time, the big brands of tomorrow are the scale-ups of today. So it is interesting to be there. It's also a new way of work for the universities. We come from a period where universities are used to work with large corporate R&D centers. Many startups, of course, do not have that, but they do have very technology intense solutions, especially in the area of deep tech where we are, where there are very good research questions that can also feed scientific research. So to get used to each other, to see that that is also an option. And I think that the situation has significantly changed. If you would say about a bit more than 10 years ago, then going to a startup as my first job, I'm not sure, because I have many opportunities in the incumbent industry. Today, it's very sexy to be in a startup and to join that. So I think the whole entrepreneurship has really got much more standing, and that's of course important to attract talent. And so I think we have made several steps there. And there was a question about how can our universities connect? I would say link up to the networks that are building, especially in Europe. There are a number of initiatives to create European universities, which are mainly collaborations. Also, the EIT has this higher education initiative, which is new, which is really about embedding entrepreneurship in university networks and connecting as many universities as possible to this whole innovation spirit.
Thank you very much, Willem. Very good comments. I guess we are running out of time a little bit, so thank you very much, my dear speakers. And I would like to pass the floor to Daniel, so we can go into the conclusions and remarks.
Thank you very much, Juice. Thank you very much, everyone, for staying with us until now. I understand 3-hour virtual meeting is quite an ask, but I hope you considered the event worth your time. I think having still questions is a good sign, and I hope that we delivered on our promise to develop a better understanding of what digital transformation actually means and what to do about it. So thank you very much, Juice. Thank you, Antonio and Bill, for taking us to the different sessions, and of course, thanks to our experts and speakers for the rich presentations. I think what became very clear, especially in our last panel today, is that innovation hubs, competence centers, other facilitators are really essential to promote awareness and to foster the use and uptake of digital solutions. They are important intermediaries to work with SMEs, not just on the adoption of technology, but on the adapting the business models, on improving the business processes, on improving the skills, and to help companies better navigate the digitalization path and developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we think it's an area worth exploring further. We want to see a little bit more, also understand a little bit better what the institutional landscape looks like in the Eastern Partner region, how the various innovation agencies, SME agencies are already fulfilling part of this role, and also how to better enable them to deliver this type of support going forward. So we are currently running a survey across the region dedicated to representatives from SME agencies to gain a better understanding of the state of play. So we hope to have the results ready in July, and that we can tailor the future webinars specifically around that question. And I think another topic that was mentioned today, actually quite a lot, and also thanks Elmar for the question on the importance of skills and talent generation. I think, yeah, it's really a good transition to the next webinar, which we have planned in September, and which we will focus specifically on that question. I think we all would agree that digital transformation is much more than technological adoption, and that having a digital business culture is at least as important. And for this to happen, you need business managers with a digital mindset. You need to have employees that are able to adapt to the change that comes with this transformation. So I'm looking forward to continue the discussion. Final point from my side today. We are planning to run a small satisfaction survey after the meeting, and we will share it tomorrow probably with all the presentations. So it would be great if you could take just 2 or 3 minutes to complete the survey and then share with us any thoughts you may have on how to further develop the next couple of webinars on that topic. So I'll stop here. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again to the European Union and to Poland for the financial support for this work. And thanks again to all the experts, to my colleagues, and most importantly, also, last but not least, to our interpreters and to the entire support team working in the back office and who have helped us to make this meeting happen today. Thank you.